Welcome back, everybody, for another Deep Dives. This time we're exploring finding your voice and gaining confidence. And to help us with that, we've got this amazing interview with Nimi Mehta. She's a TV and radio presenter, entrepreneur, just this fascinating journey that she's been on.
Yeah.
She went from feeling like she couldn't speak up as a child to hosting these huge events, and now she's helping others find their own voice.
It's a really amazing story. Like, she started out, she got her dream job, like, right out of school.
Right.
MTV presenter. It's what everyone wants. But that was just the beginning. It's what happened after that, I think, really shaped her journey.
And it seems almost like too perfect, right? Like, you go to journalism school, you get this dream job, MTV presenter gig, but then it's what happens next that really set her up for success.
Yeah.
Her contract wasn't renewed.
And that happens. A lot of us, I think, experience that, where we get to what we think is the peak, but it's not the peak. It's a stepping stone.
Right.
And she took that, she didn't let it define her. She used it as a learning experience.
Exactly. And then she spends the next several years just hustling, taking internships, applying for jobs, anything and everything. She even showed up at offices with physical resumes.
Like, back when those were a thing.
Back when those were a thing.
Really putting herself out there.
Yeah.
She understood the power of proximity. She talks about that. It's like just being in the space, putting yourself out there. You're going to be there when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, and just increasing those chances.
Right, exactly.
Of being seen and being in the right place. So it definitely wasn't an overnight success story.
Yeah.
But eventually, she lands a radio gig. Local at first, and then a national breakfast show in Abu Dhabi.
Which is amazing, because I think it shows how these different paths can intertwine, right?
Yeah.
You don't always know where it's going to lead, but you keep going, and it takes you to some amazing places.
Yeah, you go on these detours, but then they lead to things you would never expected.
Right. And so one of the things I love about Nimi's story is this idea about visualization. She was feeling down and out in the UK, and she would visualize herself on this presenter lineup at Channel 4 Dubai.
Oh, wow.
It sounds almost too good to be true, but she really stresses the power of visualizing what you want.
Yeah, and there's science backing that up, right?
There is. There's a lot of research around visualization. When we imagine ourselves vividly achieving these goals, it creates neural pathways that support those actions.
So your brain is basically rehearsing.
It's almost like mental rehearsal for success.
No.
And it makes you think, like, are we unintentionally blocking ourselves by not visualizing?
Oh, that's a really good point.
Right.
So she gets this dream job at Channel 4 Dubai, and then after 5 successful years, she decides to leave.
Which, again, sounds counterintuitive, but it really speaks to recognizing when it's time to move on. Even when you've achieved something amazing, there's this thing about stagnation.
Right.
Are you holding on because it's comfortable, even if it might not be serving you anymore?
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to walk away from something like that, too. But it sounds like Nimi had a very specific reason for doing so. She talks about shifting into legacy mode, which I think is a really interesting concept.
Yeah, it is. It's moving beyond this personal achievement and thinking about the impact you want to have. How can your skills and experiences leave a mark on the world?
Yeah, it's like reframing what's my purpose.
Right, exactly.
What do I want to leave behind?
Yeah, moving from what do I want to achieve to what do I want to contribute. And that's a powerful shift.
Okay, so then Nimi's got this other really thought-provoking idea called the voice layer theory. And the basic idea is that our authentic voice gets buried under all these layers of external influence.
It's like you've got your true self, but then you've got layers upon layers of parents, teachers, the media, social media.
Oh, yeah.
All these voices telling you who you should be, what you should believe. And that drowns out your own voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not just finding your voice, but figuring out, okay, what voices around me are amplifying that? And what voices are muffling it?
Right. And sometimes the ones that are muffling it the most are the ones that are closest to us. It's not always intentional, but their opinions and expectations create this echo chamber that makes it hard to hear yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like this constant internal dialogue.
Right. Who you are versus who everybody expects you to be.
Right.
And it can be really exhausting trying to navigate those expectations. But Nimi gives these 2 steps to reclaiming your voice and all that noise.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are they?
The first one is to isolate your voice. You got to get away from those external influences, create some space, and reconnect with yourself.
So like a social media detox.
That's a good one. Or even just limiting certain interactions, spending more time alone, reflecting, just giving yourself that mental space.
Oh, yeah, to just hear your own thoughts.
Right, without all that outside noise.
Okay, so that's the first step. So once you've isolated it, Then what?
Then you evaluate the voices around you. Look at the people you spend time with. Are they enhancing your voice or are they dimming it?
Oh, wow.
Are they encouraging you to be yourself or are they trying to put you in a box? Really recognizing those relationships that are truly serving you.
So it's not about necessarily cutting people out,
Yeah,
but being mindful of that energy that they're bringing.
exactly. Setting boundaries. Surrounding yourself with people who support your growth and who you are.
So how do you balance, like, speaking up for yourself and still being kind to others?
Well, that's where assertiveness comes in.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in, like, the workplace or, where you want to be seen as competent, but also you want to be liked.
Right, yeah. And Nimi actually had this, she tells this anecdote about this hairdresser who was working at a TV studio, gave her some very blunt advice.
Oh, I love this. What'd she say?
She basically told her, you need to stop being so nice if you want to be respected.
Oh, wow, yeah. Very direct.
But that kind of highlights that double standard. It does, and it is frustrating. Assertiveness is seen as a positive for men, but if a woman is assertive, she's difficult or bossy.
Right.
And this was actually the hairdresser's way of trying to help Nimi navigate that. So there's a difference between respect that's earned through fear and genuine respect. Don't be a pushover, basically.
Right.
Don't let people take advantage of you.
And it's not about being, like, aggressive.
No, it's not about being aggressive. It's about clear, concise communication. Taking a moment to think about what you're going to say and responding thoughtfully.
Yeah, it's about being measured, deliberate.
Right. Quality over quantity.
And, I think something that goes hand in hand with that is celebrating those wins.
Yeah.
Both big and small.
I think that's something we often overlook. We're so focused on the next thing, the next goal, that we forget to pause and appreciate how far we've already come. But celebrating those wins builds confidence, keeps us going.
And Nimi actually keeps what she calls a My Wins photo album to remind herself of her accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps her shift her perspective when self-doubt creeps in.
That's amazing. I love that idea. And it doesn't have to be a photo album, right? It could be a note on your phone, a journal entry, just some place where you keep track of those wins.
Yeah, just like a personal highlight reel.
Exactly. It's like a physical reminder of your progress.
And I think it's really interesting that Nimi doesn't shy away from talking about self-doubt.
Yeah.
She actually advises, like, sit with it.
Yeah. Let those feelings, run their course. Don't try to force positivity,
Yeah.
which goes against everything we're told, right? But, she says you got to acknowledge the full spectrum of human emotion. Those lows make the highs feel even sweeter.
It's about being kind to yourself.
It is.
That self-doubt is normal. It's okay. And I love how she distinguishes between loud and soft confidence.
Yeah.
We often think confidence is about being the loudest voice in the room, but as we've been talking about, true confidence comes in many forms.
Right. And she actually describes herself as an extroverted introvert. She feels most confident when she embraces the introverted side of herself.
Which is so refreshing to hear because it means you don't have to be the life of the party to be confident. You can be quiet, you can be thoughtful, and still be incredibly powerful. It comes from within.
Exactly. And sometimes those quieter voices have the most profound things to say.
Yeah.
It's about trusting your inner compass and having the courage to express yourself regardless of what anyone else thinks.
Okay, so how do we go about identifying and embracing that unique style of confidence for ourselves?
That's a good question.
Is it something you're born with? Can you develop it over time? How does self-awareness play into all this?
Yeah, and those are questions that we're going to delve into.
Okay.
But first, we're going to take a quick break. When we talk about finding your voice and building confidence, it's easy to get caught up in what other people think, like how they're perceiving us. But what Nimi really emphasizes is this idea of internal validation.
Right, yeah, like recognizing your own worth.
Exactly, and that's where self-awareness comes in.
Yeah.
It's understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, your aspirations. It's like really getting to know yourself so you can move through the world with a sense of purpose.
It's almost like you're laying the foundation for confidence.
Yeah.
You can't build something strong without a good foundation.
I love that analogy. And, once we have that foundation, then we can develop our own unique style of confidence.
Yeah.
It's not about fitting into a mold or being like someone else.
Right.
It's about what makes you you and letting that shine through.
Recognizing that it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's personal.
Exactly. And it can evolve over time. What might have felt confident for you 5 years ago might feel different now. The key is to just stay connected to yourself and allow yourself to grow.
So it's an ongoing process.
It is.
A self-discovery and self-acceptance.
It is. And one of the most powerful ways to cultivate that and build confidence is recognizing and celebrating your wins.
Yeah, but it's so easy to just keep moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world where everything so fast-paced.
We're constantly striving for the finish line. We don't stop to appreciate what's along the way.
Yeah, and it's those little victories, those small moments that actually keep you motivated and moving forward.
And that's why I love that Nimi has this My Wins photo album. It's a reminder of her accomplishments, and she includes everything in there.
Oh, wow.
It's not just the big awards or promotions. She celebrates little things, too, like moments of personal growth.
I love that.
Those small steps that lead to those big achievements.
Yeah, and recognizing that it's not always linear.
Right.
It's not always going to be this straight path upwards.
And it doesn't have to be a photo album. It could be a journal or even a list. The point is to have a space to celebrate those wins.
Yeah, just something tangible.
Exactly.
The ritual of self-acknowledgement.
And you can do this on a daily basis. Ask yourself, what's one thing I did today that I'm proud of?
I like that.
Even if it's something small, like finishing a task you were putting off or having a tough conversation.
Yeah. You know, and it's also great that Nimi doesn't shy away from talking about self-doubt.
Yeah, she encourages us to sit with those feelings. Don't try to force positivity. Just let those emotions flow.
Which is so hard.
It is. It goes against what we're often told. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I think it's a much healthier approach to recognize that those feelings are normal.
Right. It's part of the human experience.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that you're not capable or worthy. It just means you're human.
And it makes the highs feel even better.
It does. And that brings us to something really interesting that Nimi talks about, this idea of loud confidence versus soft confidence.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Because we tend to think that confidence is about being loud and outspoken.
The one who always has the answer.
Right, exactly. But Nimi shows us that it's much more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
She describes herself as an extroverted introvert.
Oh, I love that.
And she says she feels most confident when she embraces that introverted side.
I relate to that so much.
It's about recognizing that you don't have to fit into a certain mold.
You can be quiet and thoughtful and still be incredibly confident.
Because confidence is internal.
It is.
It's not about what other people see. It's about how you feel about yourself.
Exactly. And sometimes the quietest voices have the most profound things to say.
So how do we tap into that?
How do we embrace our own unique style of confidence? Well, I think it starts with that self-awareness that we talked about.
Yeah, like understanding your strengths and what really lights you up.
Right. And then exploring different ways to express those strengths, whether it's through your work, your relationships, or even just your hobbies.
So finding those avenues where you can really shine.
Exactly. And remembering that you don't have to wait for some big opportunity to make a difference. You can start right now with what you have.
It's about embracing that legacy mode mindset
It is.
and looking for opportunities to leave your mark on the world.
Even small acts of kindness and generosity can make a huge difference.
And it goes back to celebrating those small wins, too.
It
It's all connected. And you know, one of the most powerful ways to make a difference is by sharing our stories.
Because our stories have the power to connect us and inspire us.
Right. Nimi's story is a perfect example. She's not only inspiring others to find their voice, but she's creating this ripple effect of positivity.
It's amazing. And that brings us to a really interesting question. You know, if you think about it, Nimi went from feeling like she couldn't speak up as a child to now helping others find their voice.
Yeah.
What does that say about the potential that we all have inside us?
It really shows you the power of self-discovery and what can happen when we embrace who we really are.
And, you know, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. Nimi's persistence, embracing those unexpected turns, the voice layer theory, visualizing success. It all points to the idea that finding your voice is not a one-time thing. It's this ongoing journey.
Right? It's about constantly evolving.
Exactly. And it takes effort.
Yeah, you have to be active in that process. You can't just wait for it to happen.
We talk about those practical steps like isolating your voice from those external influences and then figuring out which voices around you are really serving you.
It takes courage to really look at those relationships.
It does.
And be honest with yourself about whether they're helping you grow or holding you back.
Yeah, and sometimes it might mean having those tough conversations.
Right, setting boundaries that maybe feel uncomfortable, but it's about creating a space for your true self to come out.
And when we find our voice, we also find that power to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely, and that's where that legacy mode comes in.
Yeah, using your unique skills and experiences to leave a positive mark.
It's like letting your values guide your actions.
And it doesn't have to be these huge, grand gestures.
No, it's those small, consistent actions that make a difference.
Like Mimi with her My Wins photo album.
Yeah.
It's a simple but powerful way to acknowledge those little victories that we often overlook.
It's a good reminder that progress isn't always a straight line, and celebrating those small wins keeps you motivated.
It's so easy to get caught up in that what's next mentality and forget to just enjoy the process.
It's true. But taking the time to celebrate yourself, that's what fuels your confidence and helps you move forward with purpose.
And that brings us back to that idea that confidence comes from within.
It's not about seeking validation from others, it's about knowing your own worth.
And when you have that inner confidence, it shows
Yeah, you show up differently in all areas of your life.
in your relationships at work and everything you do.
You own your space and express yourself with clarity.
And I think that's why it's so important to remember that confidence can be both loud and soft.
Yeah.
It's not always about being the most outspoken person in the room.
Sometimes those quieter expressions of confidence are the most powerful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, think about what Nimi's journey has taught us about our own potential.
We all have that potential within us to find our voice and make a difference.
What's one small step you can take today to tap into that potential and leave a positive mark on the world?
It could be a kind word, a helping hand, or simply taking a moment to appreciate the beauty around you.
Because every action, no matter how small, can create a ripple effect.
And when we embrace who we are and use our voices to lift each other up, that's when real change happens.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into finding your voice and building confidence. We hope you feel inspired to embrace your own unique journey and make your mark on the world.